It's December 1872. A ship is spotted, drifting, alone, in the middle of the Atlantic. Her sails are half set. No one answers the horn. No one is at the helm, and when a boarding party finally climbs aboard, she's completely empty. Not a single soul on board, but everything else is still there. The ship is called the Mary Celeste. She left New York on November 7, 1872, bound for Genoa, Italy. At the helm, Captain Benjamin Briggs, experienced, careful, respected by everyone who'd ever sailed with him. This wasn't his first crossing. It wasn't even close. He brought his wife, Sarah, along for the voyage, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia. 7 crew members rounded out the ship. 10 people, 1 routine trip across the Atlantic. 26 days later, another ship, the Dei Gratia, spots her, drifting. Off course, nearly 400 miles from where she should be. They send a boarding party. What they find will haunt maritime history for the next century and a half. The cargo was still there, 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol bound for Italian wineries, 6 months of food and water, untouched. The captain's logbook, last entry 10 days earlier, routine, calm, nothing about danger, nothing about a storm. Personal belongings still in place, Sarah's jewelry, the family's valuables, all of it, right where it should be. Below deck in the captain's quarters, a sewing machine, a thimble sitting on top of it, thread still in the needle. As if someone had simply stood up and never come back. If this was piracy, they took nothing. If this was a struggle, there was no blood, no damage, no sign of violence at all. So where did 10 people go? Here's the detail that changes everything. The ship's single lifeboat, gone, not destroyed, not still lashed to the deck, removed, deliberately. And one more thing, the ship's pump had been partially taken apart. Someone had been checking the hold for water recently, which means whatever happened, it wasn't sudden. It wasn't chaos. Someone made a decision, calmly enough to check the pump, calmly enough to lower a boat. And then, nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, no trace. 10 people stepped off a fully stocked, fully seaworthy ship, and were never seen again. Briggs wasn't reckless. He brought his wife and daughter on this voyage. You don't do that if you're worried. The crew wasn't new to him either. Every one of them vetted, trusted. This was not a ship full of strangers who might turn on each other. This was a small, tight, experienced crew. People who knew how to survive rough weather. People who had no reason to abandon a working ship in the middle of the ocean, unless something made staying feel more dangerous than leaving. The first investigators suspected mutiny or piracy. But pirates don't leave cargo behind. They don't leave valuables sitting untouched in a locked cabin. And a mutinous crew doesn't calmly disassemble a pump before disappearing. Every theory that involved other people boarding this ship ran into the same problem. Nothing was taken. Nothing except the people. Sailors in 1872 believed in things we don't talk about anymore. Waterspouts that could swallow a ship whole. Sea monsters dragging crews into the deep. For decades, those were the stories people whispered about the Mary Celeste. But there's no damage consistent with a waterspout. No wreckage, no broken masts, no storm in the log. Whatever took this crew, it wasn't the sea itself. It was something on board. Here's the explanation most historians actually believe. That cargo, 1,700 barrels of alcohol, wasn't perfectly sealed. Some of the barrels were made from a more porous wood, and in the heat of the cargo hold, they may have started to leak, slowly, fumes building in the dark, sealed space below deck. If Briggs suspected the fumes could ignite, if he thought his ship might explode, there's only one reasonable choice. Get everyone off, immediately, not panicking, not fleeing blindly, getting into the lifeboat, tethering it to the ship, waiting for it to be safe to return, and if that rope snapped, If a swell pulled them just far enough away, the Mary Celeste could have simply sailed on without them, leaving 10 people in a small boat in the middle of the Atlantic, with no ship, no rescue, no trace. For over 100 years, the true story got buried under a better one. In 1884, a young writer named Arthur Conan Doyle published a fictional short story loosely inspired by this case. He added details that never happened: a half-eaten breakfast, coffee still warm on the table. None of it was real, but readers didn't know that. The fictional version spread faster than the true one ever could. And for generations, people repeated Doyle's invented details as historical fact, turning a real tragic mystery into a ghost story. No wreckage from that lifeboat was ever found. Not Briggs, not his wife, not his daughter, not one member of the crew. The Mary Celeste herself sailed on for another 13 years, changing hands, gaining a reputation as a cursed ship, before being deliberately wrecked off Haiti in an insurance scam in 1885. But the 10 people who vanished that day in 1872, the Atlantic never gave them back. The scariest part of this story isn't a monster. It isn't a curse. It's this: 10 careful, experienced people made one reasonable decision in one impossible moment, and it was enough to erase them from history completely. Sometimes the ocean doesn't need a storm to take everything. It just needs one wrong second, and a boat that was never seen again.